Today on Doomed! Yeah. Kelly Weill of the Daily Beast joins us today to discuss, listen, we are actually discussing two fantastic stories. Both, again, there seems to be a theme in recent episodes. The show is called Doomed, yet the guests I've been having on have been giving me so much hope. We have a story about how GAB, the alt-right social network, has been pretty much eating themselves, eating their own. And then we have a story about how Project Veritas, that's right, James O'Keefe, is going to end up helping out the J20 protesters, or some of them aren't even protesters, if I'm correct.
That's right.
Yeah, some of them were just pulled into this because, huge overreach by the prosecution. But we'll get to that story very shortly. I would like to first welcome Kelly to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, thanks for doing this. I really appreciate it. On short notice, too, your story on GAB just came up. I think it was like yesterday morning. Mm-hmm. And I read it, and then I had seen the J20 story, and I was like, I have to have her on to talk about both of these because they're great.
Thanks.
So let's start with GAB. For people who are listening to this show regularly, you probably are familiar with it, because I have spoken about it, not too much though, just, in passing in conversation, whether we're talking about, Nazis, white supremacists, or, the intellectual dark web and those free-thinking lovers over there. But we haven't really spoken about it in full. So, Kelly, why don't you just pretty much give us a quick rundown exactly about what GAB is? What is this website?
So GAB is not explicitly alt-right. They say that for everyone. But it was founded in response to a news story about Facebook allegedly messing with its news vertical, and there was rumors that they were keeping out conservative news. Some of that has been debunked since, but regardless, GAB's founder, a conservative guy in Silicon Valley, or was part of a Silicon Valley accelerator, he started social media. He said, just everything goes, free speech, provided you don't break the law and say, I'm going to murder you in your home on Thursday evening or something. So GAB became kind of a haven for people who had either been kicked off Twitter for posting someone's address and a picture of a dead pig or something. Or also people who just perceive themselves as being persecuted. So people who said, Facebook is too liberal for me. And that is kind of the group of people who go to GAB.
And, I believe it started in August, and I always thought it was weird, August of 2016, let me be clear. And I always thought it was a little bit weird and odd that this website just happened to spring about shortly after or around the time where Milo Yiannopoulos was banned from Twitter. It was, I remember they used almost that as a jump-off point to sort of promote the network. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, Milo is a great case study for them. He's sort of the model user, although I'm not sure he's on GAB. But one thing GAB does is when someone, especially someone conservative, gets booted from Twitter or something, or someone complains about Twitter, they'll slide into the replies and be like, come to GAB, it's free speech. And hey, listen, in GAB's defense, yeah, you can get away with saying a lot more on GAB than you can on Twitter, although Twitter has its Nazi problems. That said, what a lot of people like doing on GAB is just going on there and talking about genocide. So it's, sure, you can say it. Should you? That is the central question, I think, to GAB.
So did the founder of GAB, how did he fall into, I don't want to say fall into that because it makes him sound like he's some innocent party to this. But how did he? What drew him to starting this why GAB? Like, what was his background in Silicon Valley that made him, get to this point of starting this site?
So the founder is named Andrew Torba, and his story is actually interesting. When I say Silicon Valley, I'm not sure he's from California. I think he was originally from Texas.
Right. The tech scene in general.
As,
Yeah, that's usually what people mean. Yeah, I thought that's what you meant too, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I usually say that as just like an umbrella thing.
Right.
Like tech, people who can computer. But yeah, so he was part of the alumni network for Y Combinator, which is a tech accelerator. He got kicked out, I think, shortly after Trump's election, because people started alleging harassment against him. Not sexual harassment, but just really unnecessary Facebook comments. So one of his, maybe like co-alumni, posted on Facebook something kind of like, moving about, I'm Mexican American and Trump's election really makes me feel scared for our future and for myself personally. And Andrew replied, or maybe it was on Twitter, he goes, build the wall. And like, okay, yeah, like, sure, free speech. Legally, you can say that. Like, dude, why? Like, okay. So there were a lot of instances like that. And BuzzFeed actually has compiled them in one pretty good place. And eventually Y Combinator's like, dude, you have to stop. Like, you have to get out. So they severed ties.
They tried to take his free speech away, obviously.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's the making of the myth, right? So yeah, that kind of is part of the origin story, right? So he has this background saying, oh, I've been censored. Well, I mean, you've been an asshole, but, so yeah, he has this free speech platform, and it's been running since, I think, August, September of, 2017. Yes. Yeah.
I forget that, the Constitution says that we all get to be part of a tech incubator and say whatever we want. That's
yeah, I love it because like so much of conservative thought is the respect for, private property right. And, my land, my property, I can do what I want. And then when like a Silicon Valley company, which they are notoriously libertarian and they love their private property, they say, hey, we don't like this, so get out. Then it's my First Amendment,
Right. So isn't this really the crux of this whole issue with these free speech types, where they just don't understand what free speech is? I mean, this is a site literally built on something that its founder just doesn't understand.
I mean, I just think that's such a misnomer, the whole free speech debate, because right. First of all, we have laws. Like I can't make threats about you. And, but I think about this a lot in the terms of like actual real life neo-Nazi rallies. People say, well, they got a permit. They're allowed to show up to the rally. They're not doing anything wrong. Well, okay, maybe when they're just standing there holding their tiki torches and chanting, they're not directly hurting someone. Historically, yes, they are hurting someone.
Right.
But it's not just that they're not just there to chant and go home. You have to look at the broader context. They're making people feel scared in their own neighborhoods. They're making people feel unwelcome. They're pushing this envelope, and usually, like, in the parking lot, someone gets beat up, or, Charlottesville is a perfect example of someone drove a car into a crowd right. of protesters. So, bubble, with no consequences or ramifications is ridiculous.
Right. No, it's absolutely... That's a great point because it's absolutely true. It's like, they see, they see a war against, their speech pretty much, and they see some sort of curtailing of their rights, but it's just not true. They're usually free to say these things, and they usually end up like Twitter and Facebook and all these social networks have been very good to them actually in terms of letting them have free reign. And they just always take it that step too far, and they get angry that they're not getting even more rights than anyone else to say and do these things. Like if I would just go online and threaten someone without any sort of political, just a personal beef. I'm angry at my neighbor, so I go online and threaten him. I probably will get in more trouble than these guys do for going online and under their little political banner of white I love when they talk about white genocide. It's hilarious to me. But yeah, by just bringing that up, they suddenly can say they want to wipe out an entire group of people or at least banish them from being around them, and they get free reign to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I think what's really funny is, like, if you really want to test their commitment to free speech, just like one thing that I like doing is when men reply to me on Twitter, I just take their avatar and I tweet it back at them, and they get so mad. I'm like, buddy, I haven't done anything to you. Like, you know, I mean, you can't handle gentle ribbing. So it's, yeah, it's purely self-serving. In fact, Richard Spencer, alt-writer renowned, the other week was on a podcast, and someone, you know, another like-minded fellow asked him point blank, he's like, well, we don't actually believe in, like, free speech. And Richard Spencer's like, no, of course not. We mean, you know, free speech for us. And that's the end goal. I mean, it's a bad faith argument, right? When they're saying we want free speech, sure, you know, that's something protected in the First Amendment. We should uphold that. But they're asking for permission to curtail the rights of others. That's the end goal.
Right. And you know, but I'm happy you brought that up, because people like Richard Spencer, and in a way also the founder of GAB, like, they know what they're doing, at least when it comes to when they bring up free speech. The founder of GAB may not get what it is, but he knows that by using that, it's a marketing ploy for his website. Richard Spencer knows it's a way to market to a new group of people who maybe they, you know, a lot of people who are just discovering this world, maybe they don't want to jump right into white supremacism. They want to maybe dip their toes and see how the water is. So free speech is the perfect way. Your free speech is being under attack is the perfect way to do it for these guys. So they know that they're able to use this stuff to market, you know, their ideology, or in this case, just to market their business with GAB. And these people who believe them or listen to them, they're the actual ones I look at and I'm like, they've drinking the Kool-Aid, and they really truly believe, and there's nothing to it. There's no money ploy, no grift. They truly believe their free speech is being curtailed in some way.
Yeah, I mean, you can look at this in, like, a broader context of, you know, the past. I mean, there's a good case to say all of American history, right, where people who are, you know, incredibly privileged still look at minorities as this insurgent body that's going to come and take their rights. So, I mean, right now, it's an incredibly good time to be white in America. Like, you know.
Oh, not just now.
Oh, yeah. Yes. But, like, they'll say, like, you know, our rights are being taken away, and, you know, you can't say anything anymore, when, in fact, it's kind of the opposite way around. If you ask me, like, what an actual scary thing for First Amendment rights is or something like that, like, I look at, like, the wave of so-called Blue Lives Matter laws where, you know, if you're, like, seen to be hassling a cop, you can, like, just get in worlds of trouble. So, and this is one thing where, like, conservatives have pushed this narrative that, like, women and minorities and, like, the LGBT community are coming for, you know, you, the previously enfranchised, still enfranchised, Americans, and you have to do something now. And what's really interesting is, in my perspective, I think the reaction has overtaken the actual gains that they're afraid of. So, you know,
Right.
it's still, we have just massive inequality in the U.S. And the only laws that have been really enacted since, you know, Black Lives Matter kicked off, a lot of them are these Blue Lives Matter laws. So, you know, that's a little bit of a tangent, but I think it's really interesting that they have this victimization complex where it's like, this other is coming to take my thing, be that my free speech or my wealth or, you know, my personal feeling of my place in this hierarchy. And that's not true.
Right.
And even if it was, go for it. Take it.
Right. And if I had planned this out better, this would actually be a perfect segue to talk about the J20 story, because that is a perfect example of people's free speech rights being curtailed.
My God.
But there's still so much more to talk about with GAB. So let's hold off for a second. And let's bring up this latest, I guess, drama going on GAB. To me, it is hilarious that they really are. They've created this. I guess you can say an alt-right oasis for themselves, where any alt-righter, any Nazi, white supremacist, far right-wing reactionary of whatever they want to label themselves today, they can go to this site, gab.ai, and it's like a Twitter where they can say whatever they want, just to the people that also believe what they believe. They can post all the racist memes they'd like and get no blowback. They can threaten anyone they'd like, pretty much, it seems like, without maybe they'll be told not to do it because, after all, GAB's a business and they have to worry about hosting and all, the hosting companies and all that. But they certainly won't be suspended or banned over it, for the most part, I believe.
Right. I mean, so some bans have come down. And when I was talking to their GAB's chief operating officer the other day, he's like, well, yeah, if someone makes a threat, we'll ban them. I'm like, okay, cool. And I just went in, in the top box, I typed kill all Jews, and look at all those that are still up. I mean, it's, yes, technically against the rules, but it's rampant, it's right everywhere and people are getting away with it.
I mean, to be actually fair to Gab when it comes to that, I went on Twitter last night just to...
Twitter's awful.
Right. Well, I go on Twitter all the time, but specifically I went on Twitter last night to see what was happening with that Huffington Post reporter, Luke O'Brien.
Jesus.
Who did that great article on that Twitter user Amy Mech, who's this really violent Islamophobic woman. Pam Geller, actually, to the max, this lady. She's has over 200,000 followers. Sean Hannity follows her. I think Donald Trump Jr. follows her, which actually is less surprising to me than Sean Hannity following her. But she's said violent things. She's posted people's personal contacts before. She's doxed people. So this Huffington Post reporter, Luke O'Brien, writes an article about her. He pretty much connected all the dots and found that she actually has many times used her real name and doxed herself. So he just put it all together in an article and basically did a great report on this woman with 200,000 followers. So obviously she's an important figure to the right. And she even runs, I believe, a startup, Islamophobic organization. So, I mean, she certainly isn't some, poor, private figure who has no, authority over people or anything. And she basically has been sending her 200,000 followers to harass him. And last night, I came across a Twitter feed that was literally listing his personal information, the editor-in-chief of Huffington Post, I think her name's Lydia, her personal contacts, her cell phone, her address and everything, and that shit was up there for hours. It might even still be up there. I went to bed last night and it was still there. They have everything, if you tweet to Donald Trump, fuck you, they have a way to shadow ban you so he can't see that and other users can't see that. But apparently they have nothing in place to stop people from sending threatening harassment, including people's personal contact information.
Yeah, I mean, Twitter's a wreck with that. And I think what you're describing is a really good example of how this is just not a good faith argument. Luke did not dox this woman. Her name is out there before. Right. She's obviously a public figure. And now in retaliation for people, saying, oh, you doxed her, we're going to do this to you. Well, they've doxed him. They doxed my friend who wrote about the controversy. And now, of course, I'm going to post my address. And yeah, I mean, it's almost like it's very hard to take someone seriously when they're this is an issue of privacy and this is an issue of, of respecting norms and civility. Well, look what you're going to do. So Twitter is not a lot better. What I will say about Twitter is the median tweet is better than the median GAB post, So I go on Twitter and it's horrible and it's all my it's everyone I went to college with. I'm like, oh my God, why am I on this website? But when I go in, it's someone's complaining about their job rather than someone being here's a fake story about Muslims.
Right.
And like, yeah, so the,
Gab would be like if Jack logged onto Twitter every day and proceeded to apologize to Candace Owens 100 times every day. That's Gab.
Right. Well, that's so interesting. It's like, Jack is like, he's on Twitter, but like, I feel like it's a pretty well vetted account. Like, I still have issues with some stuff he does, but like, you can tell there's a PR team there. What I genuinely do love about Gab is its executive team, and it's much smaller. They're a small company. They are online and they are beefing with their users. And I'm just like, so I was talking to the COO the other day, and I just wanted to be like, it's not my job to interfere, but if you thought of logging off, like, I would log off. Like, there's a saying, if Muhammad Ali gets into a bar fight with someone, you make the guy in the bar fight look good, even if he gets punched in the face. Like, you're not winning. There's no context in which you are going to win when you're online and just brawling with your user base. Just don't do it. And I'm not trying to dispense business advice. I'm just, if I were Gab, I look at that and I say, yeah, that's unusual. I've never seen that on a social network before. Purportedly free speech network or no.
I mean, I guess it's nice that they're so interactive with their users, but thankfully they do this because that's where this latest drama comes from. And I do think this one might be the one, you mentioned in the piece that Gab has been, and I feel like this has been with a lot of these conservative outlets that felt like but they actually did receive a huge bump during the 2016 election and the rise of Donald Trump. Once your guy becomes an official member of the political establishment, it's hard to be like some sort of far-right anti-establishment organization that rails against the government when that's your guy. So like they lose their appeal to a lot of people. Their traffic goes down. We see this with Breitbart. But I think this drama going on with Gab right now is going to be the one that really nail in the coffin for them. They'll be around, but I don't think they'll ever be able to get back to where they once were. So let's break down what's going on at Gab.
So I'll try. And I think there's probably going to be more. I think this is indicative of some other issues that I haven't even guessed at yet.
Right.
Basically, in the past couple weeks, Gab they've had some technical issues. They said, it's a DDoS attack. And then in the past week or so, the founder and especially the COO, this guy I talked to, Utsav Sanduja, I think his name is, and they've been accusing all these accounts of being like Psyops. That's the word. It's Psyops. It's an infiltrator. They're trying to sabotage Gab from the inside. And I'm like, well, what do you mean? And they're like, well, they're posing as Nazis to make us look bad. I'm like, Budge, you've got Nazis. This is like Nazi Twitter. They're trying to make us look bad. And
that's the business. That's what are you talking about?
I'm just like, listen, there's going to be trolls on every site. Like there's obviously going to be like some 14-year-olds like, I'm a Nazi and, just messing around, whatever. But like you have real life Nazis, like people who go out in the streets and they're like, yes, this is who I am. And they're verified on Gab. So I asked about this. I'm like, why, what is someone's goal in making a fake account? They're like, well, they're trying to make us look bad in the media. I'm like, okay, well, you're talking to me, but, they also, they're trying to have a cryptocurrency to kind of get their initial funding going. I know they're looking for other funding, throughout Silicon Valley. They're trying to, get some SEC filings through. So they need to look, my guess here is they need to look a little bit more presentable. And this is where the problem of, we have Nazis comes in. So right now they are claiming that they are being overrun by fake Nazis who are on the payroll of, to use the words SJW organizations, social justice warrior organizations. And so, yeah, it's very interesting that for a while it was this home to like an organic Nazi population. And now that my guess is when they kind of need to tidy up a little bit, suddenly, oh, there's fake Nazis here. And those are the problem.
Right. It's interesting that you bring up the cryptocurrency angle because, of course, I should have guessed. I should have guessed. We're talking about racists online, scam artists online, tech grifters online. There's going to be an ICO in the works, obviously.
I am actually livid. I have not like ICO'd anything. Like I just, day one, I just should have been like, yeah, it's my ICO for like, you want pictures of my dog? Like, get in initial coin offering and like, I'll give you pictures of my dog. Because like, I don't think they're as successful now because people have there's been an ICO fatigue and like there's been so many obvious scams that people are like getting wise. But like people who did that early on, they just cut and run and now they're in like
they cleaned
Malaysia.
house.
But there's nothing anyone could do. It's kind of funny.
I could live in Malaysia. I could have done that.
Absolutely. That's what I was saying.
For all the money they got.
Yep. Yeah. Just like abandon all shame and just next major tech grift. I'm on that one. Right.
I mean, I guess the GAB guys really did jump into the wrong. First of all, I want to give a warning to anyone in the tech industry who wants to somehow jump into like a political tech idea. Why? They always fail. I've never seen one. There already is the king of political tech companies, and that's Twitter. It's not meant to be that way, but like that's that's not what they had in mind, but it just happened. Everyone in the media is there. Any sort of like celebrities won't have a Facebook page, but they'll run their own Twitter account. Like Twitter is where it just happened. And I don't know why. Like I could see like, there's always going to be specific forums or something like, like a Daily Kos or something like that for someone of a specific ideology to go and talk to other people in that group or whatever. But like for like a broad political convo, and I've seen so many tech companies try to do this after, all this drama happens on Twitter or, and news stories hit about how 2016 ruined the internet because of political conversations. But like no one wants to go somewhere just to talk about politics. Like, no. Right. Like it just happens by accident and then people can't stop, but no one planned to do it. Like no one wanted to.
I think like I kind of tie this back to like shortly after the election, someone said something like, it doesn't matter what beat you're on now. If you're a journalist, you're a politics reporter. And like, it's maybe you can make the case that like politics always should have had a tie to our life. Like, no,
I'm sorry. You broke up just a little bit. Just repeat.
Sorry.
Yeah, no problem.
What I was saying is that, now politics is like inescapable from every aspect of your life. And maybe, it was before and you didn't notice, but now it's really present, and it's really explicit. So if you have a social network, it's going to be political. And when you try and make the stated purpose that it's a political thing, well, you've made it just a little bit too on the nose. And I think no one wants that, I think half my Facebook, posts I see right now on my feed are like, I'm so like tired of politics. I'm tired of reading about this. So I'm like, well, I'm reading about you reading about it. So, right. It's this inescapable wheel regardless. So political tech it seems almost redundant right now.
Right. And like, cause who wants to like, like I mentioned, like I used Daily Kos as an example. I mean, that makes sense for sort of, they used to be, I guess, more progressive. They've sort of become, since 2016, more of like, a generic democratic type, base of users. Not so much people on the left. But, people of that ideology go and they like to discuss about news and politics because a lot of people, even giving the Daily Kos people credit, they talk about policy. But when we talk about the GAB users, GAB was never going to be super successful because a lot of what these guys' whole ideology isn't based in policy or anything that actually affects people's lives. It's just riling people up and trolling people and getting people angry at them. And when you're on GAB, I guess what? The most heated argument you'll have is whether you're a real Nazi or not, whether you're a white supremacist or a white nationalist. No, I'm a white nationalist. No, you're a white, no, that's that's it. How much further are you going to get than that? So without their ability to send racist pictures to black people on Twitter. Like, where are they going to get their kick? Like, where do their fix? Like, there's nowhere.
I mean, there's certainly, there's 4chan and there's like the Right Stuff forums. There's all the Daily Stormer pages. There's been, I think, a pretty big shift into, kind of semi-private, forums. So like on Discord, now people are leaving Discord because Discord's like, we want nothing to do with you.
Curtailing their free speech. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Unbelievable, Discord.
I wrote a story because Discord works. It brought in the Southern Poverty Law Center, which is, a civil rights group, to kind of consult and say, hey, what do we do with all these Nazis? And I wrote about it. And the reaction from the right was just ridiculous. They're like, Discord is reading our messages, and that's not what the article said, but whatever. They're reading our messages and they're trying to crack down on us. And it's just like, I mean, yeah, you want like your private, forum for this. Well, this is like a privately run forum and you're not welcome. Right. So I think they'll always find some place to congregate. You mentioned people getting into arguments on GAB. I do want to say, like, every time I bring this up, people are like, there's regular folks on GAB. I'm like, okay, yeah, like, shout out to the GAB gardening group. Like, you exist. I see you.
Well, it's the same, like, on 4chan. Like, when I was mentioning GAB before, too, I was talking about, like, all those sort of alt-right online forums, right? But, like, even on 4chan, like, yeah, they have conversation on 4chan, but where do they get their content from? They exist to go out and just bother people, troll people, and then they go back to the 4chan poll forum, or they go on GAB, and they post a screenshot, and that's where their conversation comes from. Like, that's the content to them. They have no, like, political ideology to talk about, because they don't care about policy or anything like that. That's to be fair to someone like Richard Spencer, he probably does care about policy. He would love to see a policy enacted where black people all probably have to leave the United States of America. But that's, for the most part, I think, where it comes from.
Right. And I mean, a certain number of them do have, I would say, like, stated missions and everything like that. But what's really interesting to me is that so much of the debate just turns into kind of grievance culture. And it's, okay, so say, I'm going to use the example of, there's a group called the Traditionalist Workers Party. And for a little bit, and this is going to sound like I'm praising them, but for a little bit, I thought they were probably like the most coherent way forward for the right, because they had really, I thought, to certain people, kind of some effective sounding platform.
That's Matthew Weimbach, whatever his name was.
Heimbach.
Yeah.
Matthew Heimbach, my very favorite. No, so.
We've actually mentioned his downfall on this show before. Please tell it again, because it is, go where you're going, but the story's so great.
And then I will come back. This is maybe my favorite paragraph I've written in 5 years. Anyway, so what the Traditionalist Worker Party did, was, I think they very intuitively saw that there's a bit of like disillusionment, disenfranchisement among young people, young blue collar people, and saying, it was almost this kind of populist message that was sort of, you could almost see it be sort of curbed from the left, and it was just sort of like, we believe in like, strong communities, of course, none of that for like black people. And then, that was sort of a veneer for just flat out Nazism. Right. Those people do exist. And I'm so glad you brought up the downfall of Matt Heimbach, because where I was going with this is, yes, those policies do exist, but the people pushing them are insane. So what happened with Matt Heimbach, he was supposed to be this golden boy for the neo-Nazi movement. And so again, all this just ties back so perfectly to their thing where we value the truth. I think like people who commit adultery should be like stoned to death. I'm not sure stoned to death. We might have been firing squad, whatever. So around like 1:30 in the morning in this rural Indiana town, police get a call, and it's Matt Heimbach's, the Traditionalist Worker let me back up. The spokesperson for the Traditionalist Worker Party. He's calling police from a Walmart. and he's saying, yeah, I've been assaulted. So what happened was Matt Heimbach is married to the spokesman's daughter, the spokesman's stepdaughter. I'm sorry if I'm going to backtrack.
I actually want to give everyone an addendum here. Kelly here is confusing this stuff because not because she's confusing it, but because the relationships these people have are actually unbelievable, and the fact that I don't want to spoil it, but it is a confusing story. It is a confusing story.
I tried to draw a family tree to like work this one out in writing.
They are like he is like related to this person in this way, and that person's then related to that person in this way, but then they're also related to each other. It's extremely confusing. So let's try walking through it.
Let's try. Okay. Straightforward as I can give it to you. Matt Heimbach, head of the Traditionalist Worker Party. He is married to the stepdaughter of Matthew Parrott. Matthew Parrott is the spokesman for the Traditionalist Worker Party. Matt Parrott is married to, I think her name is Jessica. It's, I think I left the women's names out in the story. Regardless, he's married. So here we have two upstanding nuclear families. Would you guess it? Matt Heimbach is secretly sleeping with Matt Parrott's wife. And Matt Parrott, of course, being the stepfather of Matt Heimbach's wife. So, Matt Heimbach, his wife calls him out on, she's like, hey, I know you've been sleeping with Jessica, what the hell? This is hypocritical. Matt's like, oh, no, you don't understand. We ended it, it's over. It's been over for 3 months. I'm so sorry. And she's like, okay. And I guess at some point she conferred with Matt Parrott, and they're like, yeah, they're still sleeping together, aren't they? So they set up their spouses to meet in a trailer alone at night to see if they'd fuck. And this turned into, of course, the two of them hooking up in a trailer, and Matt Parrott getting on a box outside the trailer to just press his face in and watch. And then the box broke under his weight. I'm sorry. That's so mean.
I only wish he was also holding up a boombox outside.
When I was writing this, I just had the Benny Hill,
right.
What is it? Just circus music.
Yeah, that
one. So that happened. He's like, shit, now I gotta go around to the front. So he goes around to the front, confronts him. He and Matt Heimbach get into a brawl. Matt, allegedly, punches him, chokes him out, flees. I think they got into a fight in another house too. Matt goes home, and I don't remember the exact order, but he's accused of grabbing his wife by the face and dragging her away from a door or something when police came. So, and then Matt Heimbach's wife and Matt Parrott fled to a Walmart. They called police, and police were like, oh yes, we see that you've both been physically assaulted by this man. And the kicker to this was Matt Heimbach was on parole, I believe, for assaulting a black woman in a Trump rally. So he's in jail now. And he is, it's not looking great for him. And that is I'm sure I missed some weird element of it, but that is the Heimbach saga. Right.
And the most important thing to know actually is that this literal comedy, I want to say Judd Apatow film, but you know what? Judd Apatow wouldn't write something this funny.
I genuinely, I feel bad for the women and those young kids there.
Right, of course.
That's messed up. But it's too on the nose. If I'd been hey, watch out for this thing that's happened this week, someone would be absolutely not, you're making that up. And I couldn't, if I wrote it without the police warrant, people would say it was fiction.
Right. And to make sure that people understand, this whole series of events is why this white supremacist group fell apart. It's gone. They don't exist anymore.
Yeah. They had maybe a few, I think think they've
Oh, sorry,
more or less.
sorry, you're breaking up a little bit again. Don't worry, just go back. It's not your mic actually. It's the Skype call. Sometimes
Gotcha.
the connection just breaks up because Skype is good, but it's not perfect.
That's right. It's what you get for a free service.
Right.
I think there are a few people who might still call themselves parts of the Traditionalist Worker Party, but they've made a few rebranding efforts, and most of these guys don't go away. Most of them end up somewhere else. Matt Parrott, I talked to him. He's like, I'm out of the movement. But I mean, racists are, sometimes they come back, right? They're not irredeemable. There's not all hope is lost, but usually they're going to wash up somewhere else and they're going to join another movement.
Right. So, and important to note also that Matt Perry might no longer be in a movement, but he certainly didn't all of a sudden not become a white supremacist.
That is right. He's a lone wolf.
Right. My wife cheating on me has made me all of a sudden like people of every race.
He got owned into being a good person.
Actually, I'm sure that's happened before, but probably not in a case like this.
That's right. Yeah, it's probably a little different reaction here.
Right. So let's move on. Actually, I want to do one. Let's finish up on GAB before we get to J20, because I really want to just talk about before we move on the fallout that the GAB founder and the GAB workers, the people who work there, have received, because suddenly they don't like that their users who were mean to and more than just mean, harassing to black people, Hispanic people, Asian people, women of all colors on other websites. They suddenly don't like that those same people are now being mean and harassing to them on their own website.
Right. So they've started calling the cops when people send them either vaguely or explicitly threatening messages,
and this is all because they're trying to clean it up, at least how it looks from the outside, so they could get some sort of tech incubator seed money or whatever it is.
I can't say that conclusively. If I did theorize, I'd say that's probably it. But yeah, starting a few weeks ago, their chief operating officer just started being like, I'm calling the police, when someone said you better watch your back. And listen, I'm of two minds on this. On one hand, you're within your rights. You should feel free. If you feel threatened, I guess take what you think is a reasonable measure. On the other, I'm like, are you online? Who doesn't get death threats? Not to downplay it, but you're on the Nazi site. I don't know. It comes with the package, right? So they have started, I guess for a while they said they have been compliant with law enforcement. They indicated that they complied with some kind of investigations, which indicates to me that maybe they've been subpoenaed in some way. I know Facebook and Twitter get subpoenaed by law enforcement. I would love to know in what cases they have been subpoenaed, and what records were requested, but so they have had a policy of complying with law enforcement, but in this case, he's on at least two occasions he said he's calling police on people who have been mean to him online. So I'm not going to downplay it. Getting a death threat's awful. But they're calling the cops on their users. Right.
And I mean, these are this is what's really funny to me. It's they made this free speech site, quote unquote, and they invite all these people who got, specifically to invite and to become an outlet for, people who got banned from, Twitter, Facebook, wherever, because they were too extreme and racist and sexist and Islamophobic and whatever. And these people come to this site and they don't think for a second if I care about free speech so much, why are only people from a certain, why are only these people coming here? Everybody likes to speak. Everyone likes their free speech rights. Everyone has an opinion. But, maybe I should look, maybe the problem is me, or, maybe the problem is my site and who it's appealing to. It never hit them. If I ran a website for everybody and all of a sudden only far right-wingers came to it, I would wonder, what the hell did I do? Like, what am I doing to appeal to these people? Like, clearly the site is not doing what it set out to do. Which I honestly don't think that. I think that's just a cover. I think they knew what they were doing, obviously.
Oh yeah.
But like they're presenting it as this. It's like it's funny to me. It's just really funny to me, and the fact they're calling the cops on their own users now is hilarious. It is.
I mean, yeah, with all these people, it's free speech until it happens to you, right?
Right. And I can't wait for, maybe there will be a case that gets followed up, and I can't wait to see their shock when they see that it's not, I believe, in your article, they specifically named Cher Blue and David Brock as the people who are creating the fake
Antifa, David Brock.
Right. Which is hilarious to me because, like, David Brock and Cher Blue, which during the 2016 primaries was known as Blue Nation Review, and Correct the Record was a offset of that organization. Like, they actually did have these accounts specifically just to push like pro-Hillary stuff to go after the Bernie people, like the Bernie supporters, to try to convince them to, or convince people not to vote for Bernie Sanders or whatever. And like, they clearly, like, after 2016, that all ended for them. Cher Blue, the Blue Nation Review changed their name to Cher Blue to sort of shed that image. And they're basically just, you're even more Democratic friendly Think Progress or something like that. Capital D, Democratic Party friendly Think Progress or something like that. It's all like pro-Democrat stories. There's no more like real, as far as I know, attempt to have these bot accounts officially. I did actually have someone on a couple episodes ago who unveiled like a bot network connected to promoting all these Cher Blue writers and everything. But there is no like official like Cher Blue like network, as far as I know, to create Nazis on Gab. Like, why would they even care about that? Like, it's a complete waste of money. Like, there are Nazis on Gab. You don't need fake ones, like you said.
Right, yeah. I mean, I checked with Cher Blue and they're like, we literally don't know what that is. And yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, what a stupid project. You want Nazis, I can give you 50 of them off the top of my head.
Right. So Gab, and the founder of Gab and everyone involved in Gab, I wish you luck, dealing with the, hell that you have brought on yourself. I give Gab, maybe they'll make it to 2020 as like a real, like, underground, no one really, like the users who already built up their fan base there and are sort of stuck there because it'd be too much work to try to build up their network on some other website. Maybe they'll stick around, but that's the furthest I see Gab going from here. I don't think, maybe Peter Thiel will have a moment where he's like, I want to help these guys out. But other than that,
dream team.
Right. Other than that, Gab, take care. Good luck. Now let's talk about, really, we don't have much time. I don't want to hold you for too long because honestly, J20 in and of itself can be its own episode. But go ahead. Yeah.
It could be several episodes. I've been covering this for about a year now. Basically, the rundown is on January 20th, 2017, Trump's election. There were so many protests outside.
Inauguration Day, right, yeah.
Right. And there was a specific group that was involved in, it was a large group, hundreds of people, and some people within there broke some Starbucks windows and stuff like that. Kind of like a black bloc function. I'm very cautious summarizing how many people that was because it's really hard to say. But you've seen the pictures of, protesters kind of squaring off against police, and that's kind of the target of the J20 prosecutions. Basically what happened was near maybe mid-afternoon during Trump's inauguration, 200 plus people marching, and this is when the police really started getting in there with the stun grenades, with the tear gas, and just sort of corralling people. And that is the tactic is called kettling. What it is they corral people into an area and then they just sort of snap it shut and they arrest everyone within. That's really controversial because it means mass arrests based on your proximity to something. So I spoke with a photojournalist who was arrested, and he's like, you have to understand how easy it was to get arrested. He's like, I got tear gas in my eyes. I was like stumbling along, and he's like, I heard it, click shut basically. And then, he was arrested, detained overnight. I'm not sure if he was charged. He was not prosecuted. Basically what happened was the people who were prosecuted, the state made this case saying, well, okay, there was some property damage, a total of maybe $100,000 in broken windows and vehicles, stuff like that. But what the real case here is it was a conspiracy to riot. And that is a serious felony. And that stacks it against alongside the misdemeanors that they'd accrued, that's decades in prison if they were convicted on all counts. So this conspiracy to riot was what they're really pushing. And to call it a conspiracy, they pointed to ludicrously flimsy evidence saying, well, they're all wearing black. And this person was, in a crowd that was chanting anti-capitalist slogans. I'm like, have you ever been to
any protest, really? That's that's. Of
course, yeah.
I look like an official Antifa protester literally every day.
Yeah, yeah. I just what did they want? People chanting I don't like this. It's that's what a protest is, and They know that.
I'm actually now thinking in my head, that Antifa chant Antifa. I'm thinking that, but with the addendum before it, I am not. It's
yeah, I don't know, maybe wear rainbow or something, the opposite of black. I don't know. But yeah, so it turned into, and it continues to be for the people who are still being prosecuted, really scary because they have this mess and has been weird.
Don't worry, Skype just cut out again. Just do your thing and go back a little bit, right?
Okay, rewinding. But basically, so prosecutors are pushing this conspiracy, and the evidence for the conspiracy has been really strange from the start. One of the central pieces of conspiracy evidence is this video from Project Veritas, which is James O'Keefe's video outlet. They're the ones who tried to make to get the Washington Post to report on a fake Roy Moore accuser. They've done all kinds of stuff like that. That's their MO.
My favorite James O'Keefe Project Veritas moment is probably, there's a ton, but this one to me is particularly funny, is when he dressed up with mask and all as Osama bin Laden and crossed the border, the Mexican-American border, and he complained that he didn't get shot. His whole thing was, look how easy it was for me. Well, first of all, to me, and in the photos actually that came out after, there were actually border people not far away who were looking on, you can tell they're what is this shit?
Wow, there's someone with a camera crew pulling a sting video.
Right, and it's first of all, if I was a border patrol person, and also personal addendum, screw them too, fuck them. But if I was a border patrol person and I was looking through binoculars, whatever they use, and saw Osama bin Laden crossing the border after he was already dead, I would probably
your thought should have been it was the authentic
Yeah. My first thought would probably be, after holy shit, is it the ghost of Osama bin Laden? It would probably be, oh, this is just a bunch of bullshit.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, someone conspicuously crossing in racist drag, it sounds like. Yeah. But yeah, so James O'Keefe made this, or his Project Veritas filmed some people who are talking about oh, we're gonna, infiltrate this, the deplorable, and which was this alt-right party. And yeah, just kind of talking about their plans, and Project Veritas gave this to prosecutors. So, already, that's a dubious premise, because Project Veritas has been accused of editing videos, or you don't really know the premise going in. It's okay, if you say that's what it was, but Project Veritas gave its videos to the prosecution, and there is something called the Brady Rule, which means if the prosecution has something that could potentially exonerate the defendants, they have to tell them that. They can't just hide it. What the prosecution did instead is Project Veritas gave them 70 recordings. The prosecution pretended it only had one. It hid 69 of them nice. And I hate that I have to joke about that. It's
No,
like
but
a terminal illness.
thank you for that, though.
And
Because
so
if you didn't do it, I would have to have. So
of course, or you get horrible emails. Anyway, so with the one remaining video they had, they cut out a bit where the Project Veritas guy says something that undercuts like the other argument that the prosecution is using to argue a conspiracy. So the prosecution went into court saying, oh, this is the only one, this is the authentic article, lying about, I can't do math, but what's one, it's 1/70th of the evidence they actually had. Right. And even that was tainted. And the defense, to their great credit, caught it last week and they're like, hey, what the hell? Like, you told us, you get, this is, it's straight up illegal. They lied about this. And a judge, of course, was not impressed. And he tossed a whole bunch of cases, just being like, yeah, you guys, you lied to me. Judges don't like when you do that. And they take it very personally. And I think the best take I've seen on this is someone who's actually a defendant. I don't think her case has been tossed. It's still upcoming. She said, this is what happens when they try an all or nothing approach, because there was very little to actually convict these protesters on. So the prosecution threw it all into this strategy of, we're going to prove a conspiracy through these videos. And when you actually look at the real evidence, it doesn't hold up. And a lot of the cases are being tossed now.
Right. Do you know how many cases are left that haven't been tossed? Like ones that will actually be taken to trial, and, just in general, I guess, how much longer this is going to go on for these poor protesters who've been for a year and a half now having to deal with this. Yeah.
So this is where my numbers are a little hazy. I think a lot of people are looking for clarification. Going into last week, I believe there were 59 people who are still charged out of what was initially about 200 people. They're being tried in groups. When the edits to the video were revealed, that resulted in the dismissal of charges against 6 people. There's currently ongoing another trial against 4 people, and it's not clear how these rulings are going to affect them. There's an additional, the verbiage is really unclear, and I'm waiting for better guidance from a judge or someone who, is a legal expert, because I'm not. But it sounds like the conspiracy case against the remaining 50-some people might be tossed. And if that's tossed, then it's just some misdemeanor charges against them. And yeah, from what we've seen, the prosecution is totally willing to pursue these as far as they can go. There's worry that they might refile them, try the case from the beginning. But if that central conspiracy charge gets dropped against everyone going forward, that's massive. That really guts the case against, I think it's 52 people, maybe 51, who are still awaiting trial.
Right. And, there was a case I saw where one of the people who were involved in this, who were being charged, or they weren't even there. They had tweeted about J20 or made some sort of graphic to post on his Twitter account or something like that. But the point is that he was not even at the protest. He just supported it online, and he's been charged along with the protesters who actually were there.
Yeah, so he is one of the 6 people who had his case totally dismissed this week. But his is it's just insane, and you like to think that it can't happen here, but it can. He wasn't at the protest. He did a podcast. In fact, his name isn't even on the podcast. I have to say he allegedly did a podcast in the weeks before, kind of talking about, okay, there's going to be this demonstration, and I think he might have done some kind of graphic design for it, but he was not at the event. He wasn't arrested in that mass arrest. What police did is they, ascertained his alleged involvement in this thing, and they went to his house and they arrested him, pulled him out. They took his Nation magazines as proof that got a crazy lefty over here. And yeah, Project Veritas video detailing involvement in a protest he didn't go to. It was that crazy.
I'm surprised that Project Veritas didn't take their their dark money budget and try to CGI him into one of their videos or something. But could we just really just how insane it is that a prosecution would think it was okay. I mean, it shouldn't be surprising, I guess, that they would think it was okay, but they think it would be convincing, or it wouldn't become an issue, that Project Veritas would be an okay source to use for their pieces of their evidence was Project Veritas videos. Just unbelievable to me.
It's unbelievable, except in the context of this case, everything, I could go on at length about little parts we haven't even touched about. So much of this is suspect. So much of the evidence is based on the testimony of one police officer who was found to have liked kind of racist posts. He's part of, a police officer testified the other day, and after he got out of court, he changed into a shirt that said police brutality or doing what their parents should have done at home. It's the underlying ethos of this is not of, well, let's find the evidence that best represents it. It's been, blatantly politically motivated. And this is what happens when they try and see what they can get away with. And it looks like they might not get away with it.
And, it's, I'm very happy they're not going to get away with it. It's so crazy to me that, James O'Keefe is going to, I guess this episode really is the self-ownage episode, because between Gab and James O'Keefe doing this, James O'Keefe is going to be, as insane it is that they use James O'Keefe to try to prosecute these guys and girls, these protesters, they are going to all pretty much get off because James O'Keefe's involvement.
I can't believe it. You know what? Thank you, James O'Keefe, for your public service. That is solid work. Fingers are still crossed. We don't know the final outcome of this, but just this week, 6 cases dismissed, and that's major. And that's thanks to James.
Yeah, thank you, James. So, ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to Kelly Weill. She's a reporter at the Daily Beast. Kelly, I want to thank you so much for joining us today. Like I mentioned before the show started, when we were just talking, I've been meaning to have you on for a while for a number of different articles I've seen you write, and they're all great. And I hope to have you on again in the near future.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you for having me.
All right, take care.
All right, bye.
Bye. All right, everybody.
Okay.
Yep, we're good. I'm gonna you can hang up, and I got you off here. Cool. Thank you again. All right, let's go to I'll go to the comments, read a few comments, and hold on one second, folks. I'm gonna pull up this so I can see all your comments. I have them in a window on the side, but when the guest goes off, I like to make them bigger so I can. Here we go. Let's see all your comments here. It seemed like there were some feed issues. Oh, I'm sorry, everybody. Not too much, though. It seems like just the very end of the show. Okay, cool. A lot of comments today. Cool, great. First, before we get any further, let me tell you how you can support this show. Patreon.com/MattBinder. You can support the show for only $5 a month. Helps the show happen, period, first of all. Helped kick off this live stream version of the show, because I was just recording them audio only for a while. Keeps the live stream one going, too, so I could read all your comments and you guys can interact with the show. Also, because, slowly but surely, more people are becoming patrons on Patreon. So I want to give more and more as we reach towards that goal of a completely new, just for patrons show. We're still pretty, we're not too close, but we're not too far. But before that, I have Jameson over here in the chat has hooked me up with Jacob, and we are going to get, I believe, a Discord going specifically for Doomed, and on there I will be literally, there won't be a Q&A with me like how Michael Brooks and other people do it. I will literally be on there all the time. We can talk whenever. Just like when, on Twitter, it's kind of hard because when I tweet something and it gets a lot of comments, most of the time I can't even see them because it's too much. I can't, I got to do work elsewhere and make money and do jobs. But on Discord, being that it'll just be you guys, we will be talking all the time. So once that's set up, I will let you guys know what it is, and you guys could hop on there, and it will be a 24/7 Q&A. I don't even like the term Q&A because it puts me up on a pedestal. We'll just be talking like normal, like buddies. Then also some housekeeping here. I'm sounding like Sam Cedar now. Holy shit! I want to thank Blaine, who. You guys, he's been apparently following me since the Majority Report days. He, if you look over here, there is now a pop filter on my microphone, and that's because Blaine sent me an email a couple weeks ago. He actually probably would have sent me this the next day because I literally got back to him a couple weeks later, screwed up my Amazon list so he could send it to me, and then finally fixed it yesterday, and it literally arrived this morning. So I probably could have had this a few more episodes earlier if I had been on top of it. But thank you, Blaine, for sending me this pop filter. I think you guys have been hearing it today. I hope it sounds better. Have you guys heard me pop at all? Have I been popping? Hope not. Otherwise, Blaine, I'll have to take back my thank you. No, but really, thank you. You could also support this show by subscribing on iTunes. And, we're really close on iTunes, actually, to 100 reviews, which to me is crazy because the show is not even a half a year old yet. This is the 20th episode, actually. I should have mentioned it up top. I'll do that for 25 because that seems like the bigger number. But this is the 20th episode of Doomed. And, I want to thank everyone for listening. And Rachel in the comments mentions how I'm humble, unlike Michael Jamal Brooks. Very true. And then Jameson said, "This guy gets it," which I believe he was talking about me when I said, I'm a people. I'm one of you. I'm powered by the people. That's how I'll say it as I stutter to find the exact phrasing I want to use. Also, you can support this show just by telling your friends about it. You can tell them to go to doomed.tv and subscribe to the YouTube channel, or you can tell them to go to www.doomedpod.com, and that gets them to the podcast. I'm hoping very soon, hopefully, I'm using the Patreon, the Patreon money that you guys have all given to go right back into the show. I'm hoping to have a full-blown website for the show up, so I'm not using, right now I'm just using like my podcast provider's, web template, basically just list the shows as they go up. It's nice, but I would like to have a real website for the show. And, I'm planning on doing some cool things to try to expand the show's listener base. Maybe like a giveaway or a contest or something like that. We'll talk, I'll talk more about that as I, get these things settled and nailed down so they're actually happening. Let's see some comments here on the YouTube channel. Everyone's just having so much fun here with just on the YouTube comments. I love it. Yeah, I have to say it like, it's really funny. When I was on Michael Brooks' show, he thought that was me in the opening going, "Doomed," but it's not. It's from Futurama. Actually, one of the great things about naming this show Doomed is that I literally have a plethora of movie quotes to grab from, and I should do that and have like a soundboard of very well-known cinematic movie moments where they use the word doomed in very great ways. Theo would like to, he's going to apparently tell people about this show by saying, "Do you have a few minutes to talk about our Lord and Savior, Matt Binder?" All right, folks. let me talk about what we have planned for upcoming shows, actually. I have a few guests in the works. I don't want to name any names until they're completely booked. But I have some ideas for shows. Some people, candidates running in primaries, leftist challengers to the Democratic establishment. I've been speaking and reaching out to some people, and have a few more on my list I want to reach out to. I have a few more great shows in the works with the seems to be the main theme of Doomed, right-wing conspiracies and right-wing and alt-right groups, covering the latest stuff going on with those groups. I'd like to have, I'd like to have someone on to specifically talk about that story we spoke about during the show, about Amy Meck, that Islamophobic influential Twitter user. We'll see what we can do there. I know the guy who wrote that great piece is receiving tons of shit right now, and I know he's trying to just, keep his family and himself out of the sights of these guys right now. Maxillaria points out, could always throw in some Invader Zim Doomed. That's true. Yes, that's very true. Jameson brings up, I saw this, I saw him comment about this earlier in the show, but I was right in the middle of a conversation with the guest and didn't want to interrupt. Have I heard about the GAB version, like how GAB is to Twitter, what this website is to YouTube, the GAB version of YouTube, PewTube? I have. Maybe I should have someone talk about that. Also, I've been familiar with, have you guys seen this website, Steam It? I've mentioned them on the show before. Actually, I mentioned them in that article I wrote for The Outline, talking about that Twitter bot network I uncovered, that Julian Assange and various other people were going on about, thinking it was like some purposeful, like ideological Twitter bot network. Steemit is this, like, seems to be like this website where you write articles, and based on how many views they get, they have like an AdSense share type thing where, like, you can, that they share the money they make from people who view your article. But they do it in their, like, again, here it comes, their own cryptocurrency, like a monetary system called Steam. And so this website, Steemit, seems to be overrun with these right-wing conspiracy theorists. And I would love to do a show about that, and I could probably bring in PewTube and all these other sort of... They also, actually, Steemit also has a YouTube version connected to them, like their own YouTube connected to them too. So that would be a fun show. That's something I'll put on the list here. Also, you guys feel free on the Patreon comments, if you're a subscriber, or if you're not a subscriber too, but if you're a subscriber, I will definitely 100% put whoever you recommend on my list of people to comment, and I will 100% reach out to everyone my Patreon subscribers tell me to reach out to. Whether I could get them on the show or not, that's another story, but if you're a patron, I will reach out to them 100%. If you're not a patron, you could become one, but if you're not and can't afford to become one, or for whatever reason don't want to become one, still send over guest suggestions, and if it's a guest I think is a good idea for the show, I'll reach out to them as well. What does GAB actually stand for? Asks Rachel. I don't think it stands for, like, I don't think it's an acronym. I think it's like, GAB, like people gab, like the gift of gab. It's like, just like, one of those terms of, people talk to each other. It's like probably wasn't always a dictionary word. Probably was something that was started as slang and then became a dictionary word as it became used regularly in society. Peter Benson, did I see the Proud Boy stalking Vic? Vic is on my list of people to reach out to get on this show. I've actually been in touch with Vic over certain things over the years, actually. So yeah, I will definitely be reaching out to Vic to get on this show. David Packman encouraged Sam to go there. I'm guessing he's talking about PewTube, right, Jameson? I actually am not against putting yourself on these networks if you're not a right-winger. I wouldn't run a live stream there or something, but I'm not against, if you're already making a YouTube video for YouTube or making a podcast for whatever, your podcast stream, I'm not against just taking that shit and uploading it there just to try to push down the, whatever, hopefully maybe you could push down some of the horrible shit and maybe some, like I said, I also bring up on this show, it seems to be a theme of a lot of episodes. A lot of the people who go to these sites and stuff are, young white men who are easily swayed in either direction, and maybe they'll stumble upon a Sam Cedar video, and maybe on at least one point they'll be like, hey, this guy Sam is right here. I wouldn't make any content specifically for those networks because that'd be really supporting them and pushing people there specifically. But to just upload something there to already reach the audience that they already have, so that maybe they'll come find you and get off that site, I'm not against that. What time is it? Oof. All right, one or two more comments here, and then I will be heading out, and hopefully I'll have a bunch of things to reach out to you guys, and involving the Discord or whatever during the week. But of course, I will be again. Saturday seems to be the day I've been doing this. Saturday isn't the official date. If I get a guest that can't do Saturday, I will still have the show on the day they're available. And I'll let you guys all know in advance via the Patreon and my Twitter account @MattBinder. Also, I have a Facebook page. I would like to start posting more there, but just search on Facebook. I don't have a URL for it right now because my personal page is the facebook.com/MattBinder1. You could follow that one, my personal one. I don't really post much there either, but I'm not a big Facebook user. But so I have the Facebook personal page, facebook.com/MattBinder. And if you search, there's the Facebook page you could like. That's Matt Binder. And I'll post more there for everybody than I do on my personal one. Jameson with a guest suggestion, Jordan Peterson. Yeah. I'm not against having right-wingers on this show either. I know a lot of people don't want to. Obviously, there's certain, I'm not going to have a straight-up Nazi or white supremacist on this show. If you remember when I had... It's really funny, actually. I haven't spoken about this. I'll speak about it another time. But leave you guys hanging with a little something to look forward to. That former Turning Point USA girl who started the diaper protest at the Kent State campus has been in the news a lot recently. If you recall, at the end of that episode, if you haven't listened to it, I would implore you to go back and listen to it. I had her on the show because I knew she was a conservative. I knew she was a right-winger, but she had a falling out with Charlie Kirk and Turning Point USA, and she hated them. And in an article went all out to throw them under the bus. And she still is pretty, I still think she's harmless and unknown. And what she's doing right now to get herself noticed is a joke. And I thought the positives in having her on in going after Charlie Kirk and Turning Point USA, a person and a group who actually do have influence, very much outweighed the negatives of not having her on and not having someone on the inside throw that organization under the bus. And then we had a debate after. But it's interesting to see her. I told her at the end of that episode not to fall for any more right-wing grifts. And it's interesting to see her not fall for any more right-wing grifts, but to start her own. That's fun. Let's see. Yep, Rachel, the girl with the gun, the AK-47. Was it not AK? I think she had the AR. Was it the AK she had? I don't know what gun she had, but the girl who took a picture on Kent State with her gun, right? Yes, that's her. All right, guys. I will talk to you all next show. That's patreon.com/MattBinder. Subscribe on iTunes. www.doomedpod.com. Doomed.tv to subscribe to YouTube. See you guys all next time. Have a good weekend.